This is part of a series. This is number 2 in a series of documentaries, mini documentaries designed for our training of our new guides. And this particular one is focused on MacArthur the man. This photograph was taken at San Antonio, Texas in 1886 and shows the surviving members of Arthur MacArthur Jr.'s family. Absent is the second of the 3 boys, Malcolm, who was born on the 17th of October 1878. Malcolm succumbed to measles on the 12th of April 1883. His mother Pinky was shattered by his death and determined to protect Arthur III and Douglas throughout her life. On the left of the photograph is 5-year-old Douglas, born on the 26th of January 1880. Douglas, as was common with American boys until World War I, has long female-style hair and female-style clothing. It also appears that he's holding a rifle, reflecting his interest in a military career from a very young age and an idolizing of his father until his own death. Arthur MacArthur Jr. is seated to Douglas's left and is in the uniform of a colonel of the Union Army. The Union Army was disbanded after the Civil War, and at the time of the photograph, he was actually a captain in the US Regular Army. Born on the 2nd of June 1845, his father was a prominent lawyer and later judge, and Arthur Jr. would marry Mary Pinckney, known as Pinky Hardy, daughter of a wealthy industrialist, on the 19th of May 1875. The marriage would secure the financial status of the family. At this stage, the family tradition of always naming the eldest son Arthur was well established. On the outbreak of the US Civil War, Arthur MacArthur Sr. secured Arthur Jr. a commission in the 24th Wisconsin Volunteer Infantry Regiment for bravery at the Battle of Missionary Ridge on the 25th of November 1863. Arthur MacArthur Jr. would be awarded the Medal of Honor. The Medal of Honor fell into a period of almost contempt when it was awarded by politicians to encourage enlistment and for minor non-combat actions. After World War I, 911 previous awards were rescinded to re-establish the prestige of the award. Arthur MacArthur stood out as an award that was in keeping with the highest standard of the medal. At the age of 19, MacArthur Jr. was promoted to the rank of colonel in the Union Army, nicknamed the Boy Colonel in the media of the day. At the end of the war, the Union Army was disbanded, and the US Army was reduced to its pre-war size, with only 2,100 officers. After a short period in civilian life, MacArthur was commissioned into the US Regular Army as a second lieutenant, but rapidly promoted to captain on account of his war service. He would remain a captain for 2 decades. MacArthur Jr. would go on to serve in the Spanish-American War of 1898 and the Philippine-American War of 1899 to 1902, reaching the rank of Major General. He was then appointed as military attaché to Japan as a lieutenant general. Despite being the senior officer in the US Army, he was never appointed as Army Chief of Staff, in contrast to his son Douglas, who would be the youngest Chief of Staff ever appointed. He died of a stroke while addressing a reunion of the 24th Wisconsin Regiment on the 5th of September 1912. In stark contrast to his son Douglas, he insisted on a private funeral with only one member of the US Army present. He was a long-term friend and not an Army representative. Standing to the left of Arthur MacArthur Jr. is Arthur Hardy MacArthur III. Arthur III was born on the 1st of June 1876 and attended the US Naval Academy at Annapolis before being posted to a variety of warships, including, unusually for the time, submarines. He saw service during the Spanish-American War at the Battle of Santiago. In World War I, he was awarded the Navy Cross, which ranks immediately after the Medal of Honor for Navy personnel, and the Distinguished Service Medal. He had 5 children, of whom 2 died young: Arthur in 1912 and Malcolm in 1933. He himself died of complications of appendicitis in 1923. His son Douglas became a prominent member of the diplomatic corps, which led to some confusion at times. He was the only male member of the MacArthur family to have a middle name. Mary Pinckney Hardy MacArthur is seen on the right of the photograph. She was the glue that held the MacArthur family together through the long absences of her husband, Arthur MacArthur Jr., on military service, and the death of 2 of her children, Malcolm and Arthur III. Pinky was the daughter of a wealthy Confederate family who were largely opposed to a marriage to Union war hero. Despite this, she married him on the 19th of May, 1875. The loss of Malcolm to measles led to her being fixated on Arthur III and Douglas. She lobbied for Douglas to attend West Point Military Academy and moved to the Cranley West Point Hotel overlooking the grounds while Douglas was in training there. Pinky used her connections with prominent men in government and the military to gain Douglas' entry to West Point and attempted to influence his promotion later in his career. The death of Arthur III in 1923 focused her attention more intensely on Douglas, and she accompanied him, after he was now divorced, to the Philippines when he was sent there as military advisor to the Philippines' fledgling government. Taken ill on the voyage, she spent most of her time in her cabin, dying shortly after arrival in Manila on the 3rd of December 1935. It was during this voyage that Douglas met his future wife Jean, who Pinky apparently thought was a suitable match for her son. When the United States entered the First World War, Douglas MacArthur was a major, but he was appointed as Chief of Staff of the US 42nd Division. Now, the 42nd Division was unusual in that instead of being created from one state, it was created from units or groups throughout the United States. MacArthur himself then coined the term the Rainbow Division because he claimed that it was like a rainbow across the whole of the US. And the term stuck. And indeed, even today, the 42nd Division is known as the Rainbow Division. MacArthur accompanied the very early advance guard of the 42nd Division across to France, and then he was Chief of Staff of the 42nd until his appointment as the commander of the 84th Brigade. In that role, he was promoted to the rank of temporary Brigadier General. And here we see a photograph of the US Army Chief John Pershing, and he is presenting the Distinguished Service Cross to Douglas MacArthur in 1918 when he was a Brigadier General. At the end of World War I, Douglas MacArthur emerged as the most highly decorated US soldier in the Army. But at the end of the war, there was a massive reorganisation as the Army shrunk back to more or less its pre-war size. And the implications for a large number of officers was that their temporary rank, which all rank had been during the war, was now gone, and they went back to the rank they held before the war. And some fairly famous US officers such as George Patton and Dwight D. Eisenhower ended up going back to the ranks of captain or major. And this is probably the fate that Douglas MacArthur might have had, but for the fact that, first of all, he was the most highly decorated soldier in the Army, and also he had certain political contacts as well, largely through his mother's influence. In any event, Douglas MacArthur was appointed as the superintendent of West Point Military Academy, and that was a permanent appointment within the full-time Army of the United States. And that posting was in the rank of Brigadier General. So MacArthur retained his rank and into the pre-war, post-war period. This had a number of significant implications. First of all, one of them was fairly quickly came apparent, and that was that there was a great deal of resentment over a comparatively junior officer jumping literally thousands of US officers to get to the position of Brigadier General at the Academy. One of the other, and probably much more important considerations, was the fact that MacArthur going ahead rather than going back skipped out on all the courses for officer training between the rank of Major and the rank of Brigadier General. And that was significant at that time. The type of warfare had changed. It was much more logistically based, especially on the Western Front, where the quantities of ammunition and food, etc., that were required to maintain a successful campaign dwarfed anything that had been in vogue before. And the logistics that supported this huge concentration of force were quite telling, and the methodology used to achieve this had therefore escaped Douglas MacArthur, and this was to come back and haunt him, especially during the defence of the Philippines. Another one of the implications of MacArthur's rapid rise was the fact that after the normal succession of appointments as a Brigadier General and then as a Major General, he came to the rank, once again temporary, of Chief of Army Staff, and the Chief of Army Staff was a temporary general. But MacArthur came to that appointment because of his earlier rapid promotion. He came to that appointment at the age of 50. Normally, a general reaching that position would have occurred probably around about the age of 62. And quite conveniently then, the 3-year posting would have seen him at the age of 65, which was the compulsory retirement age. However, Douglas MacArthur reached that point at 53, and as a result had quite a long period of service ahead of him. He received an extension of 1 year under Franklin Roosevelt, but then it was time that he had to move out of the post in order that the whole chain of succession might not grind to a halt. The upshot of that was that the US Army was looking for a posting for somebody who had a great deal of experience, was a very competent officer so far as anyone he could tell, and with a record of gallantry on the battlefront. So the position of military advisor to the Philippines, which was an American colony at the time, was created for MacArthur, and he was posted there in 1935.